Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving headfirst into a juicy tech battle. Apple versus the EU's Digital Markets Act. It's a clash of titans.
Oh boy, here we go again. Apple and regulations, a love-hate relationship, right? So what's the latest drama?
Exactly. Several advocacy groups, including the Free Software Foundation Europe, are clawing at Apple, claiming its interoperability efforts under the DMA are, shall we say, lacking. They're not just failing to meet the letter of the law, but the spirit too.
Lacking? That's putting it mildly. What specific issues are they highlighting?
Well, they've got a whole laundry list. First, they're furious about Apple's use of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, with developers. They say Apple uses these NDAs to stifle interoperability efforts, and they want the EU to review these agreements on a case-by-case basis, not just let Apple have free rein.
I see. So Apple's using NDAs as a way to keep things hush-hush and prevent competition? Sneaky.
Precisely. And that's not all. They want a standardized interoperability request form. Currently, it's a bit of a wild west out there, and developers complain about opaque processes and delaying tactics from Apple.
A standardized form sounds reasonable. More transparency is always a good thing, especially when dealing with a company as powerful as Apple. What else?
Well, they're also challenging Apple's reliance on security by obscurity. They argue that Apple shouldn't be allowed to hide details of its frameworks and libraries under the guise of security. They believe developers should be able to demonstrate interoperability based on open standards and public documentation, and Apple should have to prove otherwise.
That's a pretty bold challenge. I mean, security is important, but it shouldn't be used as a shield to block competition. What's Apple's counter-argument?
Oh, Apple's response is, Interesting. They published a document claiming that the DMA's interoperability requirements could expose user data, specifically citing Meta's numerous requests for access to Apple's technology stack. They argue that granting Meta access would compromise user privacy.
So Apple's playing the privacy card again? A classic move. But is that a valid argument?
That's where it gets really interesting. Meta's response was essentially, Apple's using privacy as a smokescreen to avoid complying with the DMA. It's a he said, she said situation, and the EU is left to sort it out.
It's a fascinating cat and mouse game, isn't it? So what's the likely outcome here?
Well, it's hard to say for sure. The EU has already opened proceedings against Apple, and these advocacy groups are pushing for stronger action. It's a complex situation with significant implications for competition and innovation in the tech world. We'll have to wait and see how the EU responds.
Indeed, a real nail-biter. Thanks for breaking down this complex situation for us. It's certainly a story to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time with more exciting tech news. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.